Siberia, the coldest place on Earth, stretches endlessly across northern Eurasia, a land shaped by ice, silence, and time itself. From the very first glance, Siberia feels less like a destination and more like a force of nature. For thousands of years, Siberia has existed beyond the limits of ordinary human endurance. This vast frozen realm, known as Siberia, was formed through ancient geological shifts and relentless climatic extremes. Long before modern borders, Siberia was home to early nomadic tribes who adapted to its unforgiving conditions. Survival in Siberia required deep knowledge of nature, seasons, and the rhythms of the land. The frozen rivers and endless forests of Siberia became natural pathways and lifelines for early civilizations. Over centuries, Siberia slowly revealed its vastness to explorers, traders, and empires. Each step into Siberia marked humanity's desire to conquer the unknown. And so begins the long story of Siberia, a land where history is written in ice and silence. As empires expanded eastward, Siberia became a vast frontier of exploration and ambition. Russian explorers crossed rivers and forests, slowly mapping Siberia despite unimaginable cold and isolation. The geography of Siberia is one of the most diverse and extreme on the planet. From endless taiga forests to frozen tundra, Siberia spans nearly every cold climate ecosystem known to Earth. Permafrost defines much of Siberia, locking the land in ice for thousands of years. These frozen soils shape how life exists in Siberia, limiting agriculture but preserving ancient landscapes. Mountain ranges, vast plains, and frozen rivers carve the identity of Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Winter dominates most of the year in Siberia, with temperatures plunging far below human comfort. Yet even in this harsh climate, Siberia remains alive with resilient ecosystems. Nature in Siberia does not resist the cold. It adapts and endures. Temperatures in Siberia can drop below -60 degrees Celsius during the long winter months. In regions like Oymyakon, Siberia cold is not a season, but a way of life. The air itself freezes in Siberia, forming ice fog that blankets villages and valleys. Lakes and rivers in Siberia remain locked under thick ice for most of the year. Daylight becomes brief and fragile during winter in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Despite these extremes, life persists in Siberia in remarkable and unexpected ways. Animals have evolved thick fur, migration patterns, and survival instincts unique to Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Reindeer, wolves, and Arctic foxes roam the frozen lands of Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Every footprint in the snow tells a story of survival in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Here, nature proves that even in Siberia, life finds a way to endure. For centuries, indigenous peoples have called Siberia their home. Survival in Siberia required knowledge passed down through generations. Clothing, shelter, and movement in Siberia were all shaped by extreme cold. Communities learned to live in harmony with Siberia rather than fight against it. Reindeer herding became a lifeline for many cultures in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Every tool and tradition in Siberia reflects adaptation and resilience. Fire represents survival and connection in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Even the rhythm of daily life slows to match the climate of Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Isolation strengthened cultural identity in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Here, humanity learned humility before the vast power of Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Beneath the frozen surface of Siberia lies immense natural wealth. Oil, gas, Coal and minerals form the backbone of the economy in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. These resources transformed Siberia into a critical engine of industrial power. Extraction in Siberia demands advanced technology and human endurance. Pipelines and railways connect the remote heart of Siberia to the rest of the world. Entire towns in Siberia exist solely to support these industries. Forests of Siberia also provide timber vital to global markets. Hydroelectric power harnesses frozen rivers in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Economic progress in Siberia always comes at a high environmental cost. Yet these industries define modern life in Siberia, the coldest place on Earth. Despite its harsh climate, Siberia is home to major cities and millions of people. Novosibirsk stands as the largest city in Siberia, a center of science and education. Krasnoyarsk grew along powerful rivers that shaped trade in Siberia. Irkutsk serves as a historic gateway to Lake Baikal in Siberia. Yakutsk is built entirely on permafrost in Siberia, challenging every rule of urban design. Cities in Siberia must adapt architecture and infrastructure to extreme cold. Life here continues through frozen winters and short summers in Siberia. Urban resilience defines modern civilization in Siberia. These cities act as cultural and economic hubs across Siberia. Together, they prove that human society can endure even in Siberia. Culture in Siberia is shaped by endurance, community, and respect for nature. Festivals bring warmth and unity during long winters in Siberia. Music, dance, and storytelling preserve identity across generations in Siberia. Spiritual traditions in Siberia blend ancient beliefs with later influences. Shamanism remains deeply connected to the land in Siberia. Symbols carved into wood and stone reflect survival and protection in Siberia. Fire represents life, memory, and continuity in Siberia. The Northern Lights have long inspired myths and legends in Siberia. Nature itself is sacred across Siberia. These cultural symbols define the soul of Siberia. Lake Baikal lies at the heart of Siberia, holding the deepest freshwater on the planet. In winter, Lake Baikal becomes a frozen mirror of Siberia. Its ice is so clear that the depths remain visible beneath the surface in Siberia. For centuries, Lake Baikal has been a sacred place for the people of Siberia. Legends speak of spirits guarding the waters of Siberia. The lake reflects both the beauty and danger of life in Siberia. Every crack in the ice echoes the movement of time in Siberia. Standing on Lake Baikal feels like standing on the soul of Siberia. Here, silence becomes a language understood only in Siberia. Lake Baikal remains a living symbol of eternity in Siberia. Even Siberia is not untouched by global change. Rising temperatures slowly alter the frozen balance of Siberia. Permafrost that held the land together for centuries begins to thaw in Siberia. Rivers flow earlier, ice forms later, and seasons shift in Siberia. Scientists study Siberia to understand the future of the planet itself. Changes here ripple far beyond Siberia. Wildlife and traditional ways of life face new uncertainty in Siberia. Indigenous knowledge becomes vital in protecting Siberia. The future of Siberia now depends on global awareness and action. This frozen land stands as a warning and a hope within Siberia. Siberia is more than ice and distance. It is a mirror reflecting humanity's relationship with nature in Siberia. Here, time moves differently across Siberia. Silence speaks louder than words in Siberia. Every frozen horizon reminds us of our small place within Siberia. Yet life continues, quietly and persistently, in Siberia. This land teaches patience, respect, and humility in Siberia. Its beauty lies not in comfort, but in truth, within Siberia. Siberia endures beyond generations, remaining the coldest place on Earth. And as long as ice meets sky, the story of Siberia will continue.